So in the last session, we were discussing how to write, complete and write the chemical equation. So we discussed the two scenarios of writing and completing a chemical equation. So the first case was when element react with another element. So when two or more elements combine together, that will result in a formation of compound. The second condition, when element react with a compound, this will result in a formation of compound and a new compound and element. And this case is further divided into two categories. If element which is reacting here is a metal and it is reacting with a compound, so compound will have two parts, 1 and 2. So this element, if it's a metal, it will displace the first part, and the element which is a non-metal reacting with a compound, so this will displace the second part of the compound that we discussed in the last session. Now the last case, in which a compound react with another compound. So when two compounds reacting with each other, this will result in formation of two different compounds. So how we can distinguish, like if compound A is reacting with compound B, this will result in a formation of compound C and compound D. This type of reaction is known as the double displacement reaction. And how it will occur when two compounds are mixed together. Example, if I say calcium oxide or calcium chloride mixed with sodium bromide. So both of them are compounds. Calcium chloride is a compound. Sodium bromide is also a compound. So what will be the product? This is called a double displacement. What is the meaning of double displacement? It means calcium, the first part of compound A, will take the position of first part of compound B. So calcium will take position of sodium, and what happened to sodium? Sodium will take position of calcium. So it's called a double displacement, like the two atoms displaces each other compound. So what will be the result if calcium chloride mixed with sodium bromide? So result will be, because sodium will take position of calcium, so result will be sodium chloride plus calcium bromide. Is it clear, this part? When two compounds are mixed with each other, two compounds are reacting with each other, the first part of the compound A will displace the first part of compound B, and they displaces each other and result in a formation of two different compounds. which we call this type of reaction is known as the double displacement. Why double displacement? Like two atoms are displacing each other. That's why it is refers to double displacement. Now, how to write the equation? How to complete the equation? So symbolic equation, because these are the compounds, so we have to again use the periodic table. So calcium chloride. How to write a formula of calcium chloride? So when you check the periodic table, calcium is group 2, so it will be plus 2. Chlorine is group 7, so it will be minus 1. So formula of calcium chloride, calcium is plus 2, chlorine is minus 1, so calcium chloride will be CaCl2. So the first part, the calcium chloride, the formula will be CaCl2 plus sodium bromide. So we have to check the periodic table again for writing a formula of sodium bromide. When you check the periodic table, the position of sodium, that's plus 1, group 1 plus 1, and bromine group 7, so it is minus 1. What will be the formula for sodium bromide? Sodium is plus 1, bromine is minus 1. So sodium bromide will be NaBr. Formula of sodium bromide will be NaBr. Then this result in a formation of sodium chloride. So again, it's a compound. So whenever it's a compound, you have to use the periodic table. So sodium chloride, sodium is group 1 plus 1, chlorine is group 7 minus 1. So two valencies are same, so we cross multiply, it will be NaCl. So that's the chemical formula for sodium chloride, which is NaCl. Plus calcium bromide. So calcium is group 2 plus 2 and bromine is group 7 minus 1. So formula of calcium chloride, the cross multiply the valency, so it will be CaBr2. So this is, we completed the equation. It is not balanced, but we complete. The completion is done. The second part is balancing. And to balance, you cannot write the number with a as a subscript. You can write only the number before the element or compound. So there is no oxygen involved or hydrogen, so you can start with any other element. So if I start with chlorine, how many chlorine are there on the left hand side? How many chlorine atoms are there on the left hand side? The number of chlorine atoms on the left hand side. So that is 2. So I need I have one chlorine on the right hand side, so I need 2. So what number I should write here to balance this? What number I should write to balance this? I have one chlorine on the right hand side and I have 2 chlorine on the left hand side. So to balance it, which number I should write? So I should put 2. So when I put 2, now the chlorine is balanced. Is it clear? First part, the balancing of chlorine. The second part, for sodium, when we check sodium, on the right hand side, we have 2 sodium because this 2 is with sodium and chlorine. So we have 2. And on the left hand side, we have only 1 sodium. So which number I should write here to balance sodium? So if I put 2, so sodium is also balanced. Then we have the other element, which is bromine. So when we check bromine, so this 2 is already there. So it means 2 is bromine, 2 bromine on the left hand side and 2 bromine on the right hand side. So bromine is already balanced. And when we check calcium, there's one calcium on the left hand side and one calcium on the right hand side. So that is also balanced. So this equation is balanced in terms of all the elements. So we don't have to write numbers. So it means 1 is written here. Is it clear? This one, this equation, the balancing part? Yes, Heather. Abdullah Khan. Is it clear, this part? Yeah, I will give more examples related to this. But what about, is it clear, this example? The completing and balancing the equation. Yes, Heather. Another example, if we say we have silver nitrate, or we have sodium oxides plus calcium chloride. So sodium oxide plus calcium chloride, the two compounds are reacting with each other. So this is compound, sodium oxide is a compound, calcium chloride is also a compound. So when two compounds are reacting with each other, the double displacement means sodium will take position of calcium and calcium will take position of sodium. Now what happened? What will be the product form? When sodium oxide reacted with calcium chloride, what will be the product form? The double displacement will occur, sodium oxide plus calcium chloride. What will be the product formed here? The product form, the result. The two compounds are reacting with each other as we are discussing the third part. When compound A reacted with compound B, there is a double displacement that first part of a compound A take the position of first part of compound B, and first part of compound B take the position of first part of compound A. So in this question, you have sodium oxide reacted with calcium chloride. So what will be the product form? What will be the result? So calcium will take position of sodium. So the first product will be calcium oxide. What about the second product? The second product will be sodium chloride. So these are the two products formed when sodium oxide reacted with calcium chloride. Now the second part is completing the equation, writing a symbolic equation. So to write a symbolic equation, you have to use the periodic table. First, we have to write a formula of sodium oxide. So writing a formula of sodium oxide, sodium is group 1, so it is plus 1, and oxygen is group 6, so it is minus 2. So sodium oxide formula, sodium is group 1 plus 1, and oxygen is group 6, so minus 2. What we do, we cross multiply the valencies. So the formula of sodium oxide will be Na2O. So the first part, formula of sodium oxide, it will be Na2O. Then calcium chloride. What will be the formula of calcium chloride? So again, you have to use a periodic table. Because it's a compound, so compound, you need a periodic table. The calcium chloride, calcium is group 2, so it will be plus 2. Chlorine is group 7, so minus 1. It's a compound, Abdullah, because it's a compound. In a compound, you don't have to bother about a metal or non-metal. If it was element alone, like if it was oxygen, it was written oxygen, then it should be O2. But this oxygen is present in a compound. So when it's present in a compound, metal and non-metal, we don't bother about it should be O2 or O. We should just check the valencies and write a formula of the compound. Is it clear, Abdullah Sarfraz? Your question was, you're saying about oxygen we should write O2, but that's wrong. Why it is wrong? Because it's a compound. In a compound, if we have oxygen, we just take the valency and write a formula of the compound. Why it is Na2? Because when you check the periodic table, this is how we write the formula of the compound. That sodium is in group 1. So if it is group 1, the valency is plus 1. Oxygen is group 6, so its valency is minus 2. And we discuss how to write a formula of a compound. So sodium is group 1, which is plus 1, and oxygen is group 6, which is minus 2. So when first we simplify the valency in the simplest ratio, and then we cross multiply. So this 2 is a valency of oxygen, which will come with sodium, and 1 is a valency of sodium, will come with oxygen. So formula of sodium oxide will be Na2O. That's why for sodium oxide we write Na2O. That's according to their valency, the formula according to the valency of each element. Is it clear now? Then calcium chloride. Calcium chloride, because it's a compound, so whenever it's a compound, you have to use a periodic table and write the formula of the compound. So calcium is group 2, so it will be plus 2. Chlorine is group 7, so it will be minus 1. So what will be the formula of calcium chloride? Calcium is group 2 plus 2 valency, and chlorine is group 7 minus 1. So when we write the formula, we cross multiply the valencies. So formula of the calcium chloride will be CaCl2. So this 2 is coming because of the valency. It's not because it's a non-metal. It's because of the valency of the calcium. There is a 2 present with chlorine. So the formula for calcium chloride will be CaCl2. And this formed calcium oxide, another compound. So calcium oxide means a combination of calcium and oxygen. So how to write a formula of calcium oxide? So there is calcium and oxygen. Calcium is group 2 plus 2, oxygen is group 6. So calcium is plus 2, oxygen is minus 2, but we can further simplify in the simplest ratio. So ratio will be, because the ratio of 2 is to 2 is simplified as 1 is to 1. So simplest ratio will be 1 is to 1. And then we cross multiply. So when we cross multiply this 1 and 1, the formula of calcium oxide will be CaO. So the formula of calcium oxide will be CaNO plus sodium chloride, again a compound. So you have to use, whenever there is a compound, you have to use a periodic table to write a formula. Sodium chloride, so sodium is there, and chlorine is group 7 minus 1, sodium is plus 1. So the formula for sodium chloride will be NaCl. So when we write the formula for sodium chloride, it will be NaCl. So that is the first what we did. We completed the equation. So when you're completing the equation, you don't have to bother about the balancing, because when you're completing the equation, you should check the right formulas. You should write correct formula should be written, because if one of the formula is wrong, the whole equation will be wrong. Now the second part is to balance. And for balancing, we can only put the number before the element or compound. So now to start the balancing, here we have 2 calcium on the left hand side and we have 1 calcium on the right hand side. So what number I should write here to balance calcium? So I should write 2 here. So calcium is balanced. Sorry, not calcium, chlorine. By mistake I said calcium, it is chlorine I was talking about. Chlorine is 2 on the left and it is 2 on the right, it is balanced. Now if I check calcium, the calcium is 1 on the left hand side and it is 1 on the right hand side, so it is already balanced. Sodium, how many sodium are there on the left hand side? 2. And how many sodium when we already put this 2? So it makes 2 sodium. So sodium is also balanced. What about oxygen? There is 1 oxygen on the right hand side and there is 1 oxygen on the left hand side. So that is also balanced. So this equation is balanced in terms of all the elements. So we don't have to write like there is 1 here. Don't write 0. If you write 0, that is also wrong. It means it is 1 here. Is it clear, this example? Normally in exam, they give you the symbolic equation and you have to complete. Example, if I give the equation, because right now we discuss 3 types for balancing. For completing the equation, we discuss the 3 types, in which first one, element react with element. The second one, element reacting with compound. and the third one, compound is reacting with compound. So in exam, they normally provide a symbolic equation, and we have to identify which category it belongs to, and from that we can complete. So example, if we have Ca plus Cl2 or Ca plus N2, which category is this? Which kind of equation? Element plus element, element plus compound, or compound plus compound? Which equation is this? Element plus element, element plus compound, or compound plus compound? What is the class of this equation? Yes, Yusra, Abdullah, Freen, Abdullah Khan. What is the class of this equation? It is element react with element, element is reacting with compound, or compound is reacting with compound? What is the class of this equation? Is it element react with element react with compound, or compound react with compound? So how to identify the equation? You have to check calcium. So calcium, yeah, that's right. It is element reacting with element, because calcium is element and N2 is nitrogen. It is also element. So it is a category of element plus element. And whenever element react with another element, what it result? It result in a formation of what? It result in a formation of compound. So element plus element, the result will be a compound. So if we have to complete this equation, we have, because two elements are reacting, so we have to write a compound here. So we have to write a compound, a formula of a compound, which is a combination of nitrogen and calcium and nitrogen. So how to write a formula of a compound which is a combination of calcium and nitrogen? So you have to check the periodic table. So when you check the periodic table, calcium is group 2, so it will be plus 2, and nitrogen is group 7, group 5, so it will be minus 3. So what is the formula of the compound? Calcium with a combination of calcium and nitrogen. So calcium valency is plus 2 and nitrogen valency is minus 3. So we cross multiply. So the formula of this compound, which contain calcium and nitrogen, it will be Ca3 and N2. So the formula of this compound, it will be Ca3 and N2. Is it clear? First we completed the equation. Then we have to balance. So to balance, we can only write the number For balancing, we can only write the number before the element or compound. So nitrogen is already balanced. You can see both sides we have 2 nitrogen. Above the calcium, on the right hand side we have 3, on the left hand side we have 1. So what number I should write here to balance calcium? On the right hand side we have 3 calcium. On the left hand side we have only 1. We need 3. So we put 3. So calcium is also balanced. So this equation is balanced in terms of calcium and nitrogen. So in exam, this type of questions are very common, in which the symbols are given. So first, when the symbols are given, what you have to do, you have to identify the type of the equation, and from type of equation you have to complete the equation. Is it clear to everyone? Your response is very important. That shows your understanding. If you are not able to understand, I can repeat this. Another example, if I say Ca plus MgO, which kind of equation is this? Element plus element, element plus compound, or compound plus compound? So it is element plus compound, good. Calcium is element, magnesium oxide is compound. So when element is reacting with a compound, we have to check whether this element is a metal or non-metal. If element is a metal, it will displace, if element is a metal, it will displace the first part of a compound. So it means the compound, it will result in a formation, because when element react with a compound, it will result in a formation of compound and element. So the compound will be formed by a combination of calcium and oxygen. And how to write a formula of a compound? Because we want to write a formula of a compound which is formed by a combination of calcium and magnesium, calcium and oxygen. So you have to check the periodic table again, because to write a formula, so calcium it's +2 and oxygen is group 6, so -2. So calcium +2, oxygen -2. We simplify the valency and then cross multiply. So the formula of a compound which contain calcium and oxygen, it should be CaO. An element which is formed here, because that element is a metal, so because it is a metal, so it will be an atom. And this equation is already balanced in terms of calcium, magnesium and oxygen. Yeah, it is important to write a formula. That's a very important thing, because in exam they give you a symbolic equation and you have to complete in this manner. Like in the exam, how they give, they will write calcium plus MgO, then complete the equation. That is how they give. So first thing, you have to identify the category of the equation, and then if it is a metal, it will displace the first part. So it will be a compound of calcium and oxygen. And to know the compound of calcium and oxygen, you should always use a periodic table. So when you use a periodic table, calcium is +2, oxygen is -2. So the compound of calcium and oxygen will be CaO. And same way, if we have sodium reacting with calcium oxide. So if sodium is reacting with calcium oxide, so again we have to identify the category of the equation. Here it is an element, and calcium oxide is a compound. So it will result in a formation of compound and element. So first we identify this element is a metal. So if it's a metal, it will displace the first part. So student think what is a common mistake a student used to make? They displace and they write formula of sodium oxide as NaO. That is wrong, because you want to write a formula of a compound which contains sodium and oxygen. So how to write a formula of a compound contains sodium and oxygen? Again, you have to use a periodic table. So sodium is +1 and oxygen is -2. So the formula of the compound, sodium is +1 and oxygen is -2. We cross multiply. So it will be Na2O. So the formula of sodium oxide will be Na2O and element calcium will be there Ca. So this is how we complete it. Then we have to balance, because we have 2 oxygen. So if we put 2, we have 2 sodium. So if we put 2 here, the sodium is balanced. Is it clear? This equation, this example. So don't directly write the formula of the compound. Always use a periodic table whenever you're writing a formula of the compound. So this was about the balancing. Tomorrow as well, we'll do more questions related to balancing part. Any question related to the class today? There will be another session, a short session of past papers that we will do. I'll share another link.